Most people chase success like it's the only thing that matters. Ethan Westbrook, though, had already caught it, tied it up in a bow, and locked it behind the gold-plated doors of Manhattan skyscrapers. He had it all: money, fame, power, and yet he couldn't breathe. The cameras, the contracts, the calculated smiles, they drained him like a slow leak in a luxury tire. In the middle of a silent morning, he slipped away without a word, chasing something he didn't fully understand. There was no plan, no press release, not even a goodbye note.
Hello, I'm going to tell you this incredible story. Put on your headphones for a better experience and sit comfortably because you're going to be moved. Remember that to receive new stories like this, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and activate the notification bell. Without further ado, let's get to the rest of the story.
Ethan just tossed a bag into the trunk of a dusty old car and headed south. It wasn't running from something, it was running to something. Maybe a whisper from the past, maybe a promise buried deep in an emotional story his mother once told him. All he had was an old travel guide, dog-eared and yellowed, with a handwritten note inside. Blue Ridge, peace lives here. The town was exactly as the book described. Untouched, unbothered, almost forgotten. Nestled between misty hills and sleepy streets, Blue Ridge didn't care who you were. It didn't ask for resumes or Instagram followers. Ethan rolled into town with nothing but jeans, callous thoughts, and a worn soul. He checked into a creaky little inn with ivy on the walls and silence in the hallways. And for the first time in years, the noise in his head slowed down. He became just another stranger passing through. The folks at the diner didn't flinch when he ordered black coffee and eggs. Nobody recognized him, and honestly, that was the point. He watched people move slowly, love deeply, laugh loudly. It was the kind of touching stories you never see in glossy magazines, the kind real people live every day when no one's watching. The mountains didn't care about his net worth. The wind didn't whisper about his legacy. It just was pure, steady, honest. Ethan hiked alone, sat by rivers, read dog-eared books from the inn's dusty shelf. He found himself staring at sunsets longer than he stared at spreadsheets. Each moment began to chip away at the armor he wore for so long. This wasn't some rich man's fantasy escape. This was detox of the soul. A real story unfolding in quiet colors, one morning at a time. He fixed the squeaky porch swing on the inn just because it felt right. He started helping in small ways, without being asked. He didn't need anyone to know who he was. For once, he just wanted to be. And then came a voice, warm, kind, and honest, that would change everything. It wasn't the town that would transform him, but someone in it. The next chapter of this emotional story was about to begin, and Ethan didn't even see it coming. HarperCollins had mountain dust in her blood and a fire in her chest. She wasn't born to impress. She was born to endure. After losing both parents in the same cruel year, then became her inheritance and her burden. Guests came and went, most without even remembering her name. But she held on, pouring herself into every room, every meal, every small smile she could give. The inn wasn't fancy, but it was real. The wood creaked like an old man telling war stories, and the curtains smelled like childhood. Still, Harper kept it alive, even when the bills screamed louder than the wind. Locals knew her strength, but few saw her loneliness. Beneath her steady hands lived a heart aching for connection. Not pity, just presence. When Ethan checked in, she barely looked twice. Another traveler, another polite hello. But something about him lingered in the air, like the scent of rain before it falls. He didn't talk much, didn't scroll on his phone, didn't brag or demand. Instead, he listened. Listened like her stories mattered, like she mattered. There was a quiet tenderness in the way he asked about the inn's history, her family, the town's past. Harper wasn't used to anyone caring that deeply, especially not strangers. But Ethan showed up, not with flowers or flattery, but with small acts of kindness. He helped move heavy boxes, fixed a crooked shutter, mopped the floor after a storm. These weren't grand gestures. They were real. And slowly, the wall she'd built out of grief and fatigue began to crumble. Harper caught herself laughing more. not because of some fairy tale romance, but because she felt seen. Ethan asked about her dreams, not just the business. He asked what she loved, what she missed, what she feared. Those moments between them, that's where the touching stories live. The ones that sneak up on you, like spring after a brutal winter. She started looking forward to his footsteps down the stairs, the way he sipped his morning coffee, the way he lingered when the sun set behind the hills. Harper didn't know who he really was, but she felt something real, something more honest than anything she'd ever experienced. A real story was unfolding, slowly, softly, in the middle of that quiet inn. And yet, there was something unspoken in his eyes, a weight he carried that didn't match his gentle ways. Harper could feel it, even if she couldn't name it. She didn't know that this emotional story had only just begun, and that love, truth, and secrets were about to collide. There's a kind of love that doesn't need music or moonlight. It grows in silence. That's how it was for Harper and Ethan. No big declarations, no whirlwind romance. Just quiet mornings filled with shared glances and side-by-side work. He painted the shutters. She cooked biscuits. And somehow, that became everything. Ethan became part of the inn's rhythm, fixing fences, chopping wood, washing dishes, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Every act felt like a promise. Harper, though careful, began to let her guard down. Her heart, once wrapped in caution tape, slowly started to open like the windows they left cracked at night. They talked about dreams by the fireplace, about fears under the stars. He asked about her parents, and she cried once, just a little. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, and in that silence, Harper felt safe. Ethan didn't try to fix her pain. He just held space for it. And that, more than anything, made her fall. The town began to whisper. Not gossip, just hope. Folks saw the way he looked at her, like she was both sunrise and shelter. Harper felt it too, though she wouldn't admit it out loud. This wasn't just a guest falling for the innkeeper. This was a real story about two lost souls finding pieces of themselves in each other. Still, Ethan kept his secret close. Every time Harper thanked him or smiled, it twisted something in him. The guilt wasn't about money, it was about the mask. He wasn't lying, not exactly, but every sweet moment made the silence heavier. He wanted to tell her, he really did. But how do you say, I'm the billionaire behind the hotels trying to compete with your inn? Despite the truth pressing against his chest, Ethan leaned into love. He carved Harper's name into an old oak behind the inn. He memorized the sound of her laugh and the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous. These weren't just romantic memories. They were the foundation of an emotional story neither of them would ever forget. Then, one evening, with trembling hands and a beating heart, Ethan knelt on one knee. No grand audience, no champagne, just them, under stars and surrounded by silence. He asked her to marry him, still hiding the biggest piece of who he was. And in that quiet pause before her answer, the weight of everything unsaid hung heavy in the air. It should have been the happiest moment of their lives. The proposal was perfect in its simplicity. Harper's yes came with tears, laughter, and a kiss that felt like forever. But Ethan knew joy built on a hidden truth wouldn't last. So the next morning, before the ring had even settled on her finger, he told her everything. No filter, no spin, just raw truth. I'm Ethan Westbrook, he said, eyes locked on hers. The Ethan Westbrook. And just like that, her world tilted. Not because he was rich, she couldn't care less about bank accounts, but because he had waited, kept a part of himself locked away during all those intimate moments. Harper's heart didn't break. It bristled. The silence hurt more than the secret. She pulled away, not in anger, in heartbreak. This wasn't just about honesty. It was about trust. She had given him her most vulnerable stories, and he'd responded with carefully chosen words. Ethan didn't chase after her. He didn't beg. He just stood there, hands open, heart exposed, hoping the emotional story they'd written together wasn't over. Ethan knew words couldn't fix this, so he let actions speak. Quietly, he called contractors, not the big guys from the city, but local crews. He invested in the inn, not to take it over, but to lift it up. The cracked walls were patched, the gardens bloomed again, the roof stopped leaking. Every nail, every brushstroke was a love letter. Harper watched from a distance. She saw the inn change, not into something flashy, but into something strong. Flyers appeared in nearby towns. Ethan launched heartfelt campaigns celebrating Blue Ridge, highlighting its charm through real story testimonials. No logos, no ego, just stories. Touching stories of community, memory, and second chances. The town began to rally around them. Guests returned, drawn not by discounts, but by authenticity. People wanted to stay where love had been tested and restored. Harper saw how Ethan moved, not above them, but beside them. And in that, her anger softened. She realized he wasn't trying to own her dream. He was trying to honor it. One crisp afternoon, Harper walked back into the inn's front porch with a soft smile and a heart ready to forgive. She didn't say much, just took his hand, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Don't ever hide from me again." And just like that, the air shifted from tension to peace. But Ethan had one more surprise, and it would change everything yet again. Ethan didn't hold a press conference. There were no flashing cameras, no headlines screaming his name. One quiet morning, he simply signed the papers and sold everything. His empire, the hotels, the boardroom, the towering offices, all gone. Not out of spite or burnout, but because it was never really his to begin with. He chose Harper. He chose the inn. He chose the porch swing with chipped paint over penthouses with polished floors. No more city noise. Just the hum of crickets, the laughter of guests, and the warmth of early morning light through kitchen windows. Ethan didn't just walk away from New York. He ran toward a new beginning. One built on truth, not performance. Blue Ridge became their haven. Together, Harper and Ethan rebuilt not just a business, but a life. They planted new flowers where weeds had grown, hosted music nights with local bands, welcomed strangers who quickly became family. Their love didn't just live in their hearts. It echoed through the walls, the food, the laughter of those who passed through. Guests came for rest and left with something more. Because in that inn, every detail whispered a touching story. The old piano that Ethan restored. The hand-sewn curtains Harper made with her late mother's patterns. Even the bookshelf had a section labeled, "For rainy days and heavy hearts." It wasn't a business. It was a sanctuary. Ethan never missed his old life. Not once. He traded billion-dollar meetings for garden mornings and starlit walks. He laughed more, aged slower, loved deeper. Harper sometimes caught him just watching. Not her, not the guests, but the moment itself. Like he was trying to memorize peace. And maybe, just maybe he was. The town embraced them. Locals brought pies and stories. Children played in the inn's backyard. People came for a stay and ended up telling their own emotional story over breakfast. That was the magic. Every person who passed through added another chapter. A collection of real story moments stitched together by love, loss, and redemption. And though Ethan never planned to become anyone's example, he quietly became proof that even when you have everything, it means nothing without someone to share it with. Their story wasn't perfect, it was human. And in the stillness of the countryside, far from flashing lights, Ethan Westbrook finally found what no amount of money could ever buy: home. Have you ever wanted to just drop everything and start over? Walk away from the noise, the pressure, the expectations, and finally breathe? Ethan did what most people only fantasize about. But would you have the courage to do the same? Do you believe real love can find you in the middle of nowhere when you're not even looking? Tell me in the comments. What would your escape look like? A beach? A cabin in the woods? Or maybe, just maybe a quiet inn in the mountains? I want to hear your story. And if this emotional story moved you like it moved me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. There are more touching stories, more real story journeys waiting for you right here.